Today I wanted to talk about the issue of opportunity cost and how it causes problems for us when we think about what we should be doing with our time and when we start talking about things like mindfulness. I know for me, it seems like a never-ending question in the gaming space of what game do I want to play? And that is a problem which I never really had when I was a younger child, because I just didn't really have a lot of games to play. If I had a couple games, I would have been super excited about them. And now as an adult, I have every game in existence just a click away. I could one click purchase it. I can have it in my library. I can give it some playtime. And it's really easy to get wrapped up in all the different things that I could be playing. Now, there are some games that I've given thousands of hours to. There's some that I enjoyed and only put a few hours into. And there are some which I have thought would be really cool to play, but the reality is I put almost no playtime into them. The reality is, if I just took the top 5 favorite games that I've intuitively enjoyed the most over time, and those were the only games I played, my life wouldn't be any worse off. I would have fun. I would enjoy those titles. I might even enjoy them more. And the issue in life is that we start to think about all the things conceivably that we're missing out on. And we do this in every part of our lives. We do it in terms of relationships. We do it with jobs. We do it with games. We think to ourselves, well, how do I know that what I picked is best? What if I picked the wrong thing? What if I picked something that's good, but it's not the technically best option I could have picked? Then what if I waste my life on something that was the wrong choice? I think there were a lot of people in the past who had happier marriages, probably, because they didn't really think about whether they were happy or not. And maybe they were paired up with somebody who was a good person. Maybe they had a good relationship. Maybe they had all of the components there to have a good relationship. They just maybe weren't really in a society where it was so easy to reevaluate all the time. So people just picked somebody and then they settled down and life was what it was. There wasn't any, let's, double check to make sure we picked the right person and spend our whole lives, doubting and comparing and questioning and, nitpicking over technicals. Just like with games, there was a time when we didn't think so much about being, playing the best game on the market. There wasn't 100 YouTube videos out there saying, compare the graphics of these various games. And, if one isn't as good as the other one, then maybe, you're playing a game that sucks and you should stop it and switch to something else. Like we didn't have as much of that in times before social media was as prevalent, in times when the internet was not as mature. There were a lot of times in our lives, I think, in the past, when we just didn't have as much choice. And so instead of looking for something better, we tried to make the most of what we had. And that led to a lot of good things. It's when you stop shopping around and you start being present in the moment that you start to develop a level of mastery. It's kind of like if you ever learned how to drive a car, everything was important when you first began. Every intersection was a miracle to get through. Every lane change, every merge on or off the freeway, all of it was stuff you paid a lot of attention to. But when you're a seasoned driver, you don't spend a bunch of time thinking about all of the little things because you got that behind you. And then you focus on the things that really matter, which are actually getting to your destination. Warren Buffett said, if you want to be successful, consider making a list of your 25 top favorite things and then get rid of the bottom 20 and focus just on the top 5 of those. It's really hard to do that when we have a sense of FOMO. The fear of missing out makes us continually ill at ease, continually saying, maybe I should look around a little bit more. And then the more we start paying attention to all of those small details, the more we start to realize that nothing is entirely perfect because we hold everything to such a high standard that nothing can really live up to it. And even if something procedurally appears to be good, it's only a matter of time until something else comes along that looks shinier, that looks better. And then we fall into the trap of decision paralysis. And I think I'm not the only one who can relate to this feeling. If you ever went to your Steam library, you say, I'm going to go play a game, and then you can't figure out which one you want to play. So what do? You look at your Steam library for a while, and then maybe you didn't even play anything. You just signed out again, and you didn't even load a game because you couldn't figure out which one you wanted to spend time playing. And you could say, well, that's because, as we grow older, our perceptions change and things like that. And yeah, there's a little bit of that. But that's not the elephant in the room. The big lion's share of the reason why we tend not to be satisfied in life is because we have too much choice. And so we focus on trying to make better choices instead of trying to make the most of the choices that we already have made. Now, are some things technically better? Sure, probably. But it's sort of like if I said I was going to pick the best coffee shop in town. What is the difference? It's true. Some have a little bit better ambiance. Some of them have better decorations. But the truth is, they're all coffee shops. You can probably go to any of them and get yourself a perfectly functional latte. Now, I'm not saying that if you don't find if you find a coffee shop you enjoy, that you don't go to the one you like. Sure. But don't spend your entire day trying to find the perfect coffee shop and then wind up not actually getting a coffee at all because you were so busy trying to pick the right one. The key to happiness in life isn't about finding it. It's about allowing yourself to have happiness in the moment. Now, as for what to pick, because even if we said, well, pick a game you like and then stick with it, or you don't have to play every single game in your library or every single one that exists. Well, you still have to make choices because life is filled with choices. So how do we make good choices that we're going to enjoy? And I think the answer is simple. You have to listen to your intuition. Your intuition being that feeling of quality, the feeling of joy. You know, I remember when Genshin Impact came out, I started playing that game, and I hadn't really played any game quite like it. It was a unique experience. And of course, years have now passed since the game came out. So it's, you know, a lot further along in development than it was in 2020 or 2021 when I first started playing. But I just remember this feeling of being amazed. The art is beautiful, the music is beautiful, the setting and the open world is elegant. Everything about the game is just really polished and aspirational in a way. And I liked it. Now, is it the best game ever? If we were going to compare it to other RPGs and things, well, no, I wouldn't say so. It's probably best in class at what it does. But I wouldn't go tell other people, you know, this is going to be the best game that you ever play, because it's not for everyone. But for me, it spoke to me. It just seemed amazing. It transported me to a different place at that time. And since then, sometimes I've taken breaks from the game. Sometimes I play it a lot, and sometimes for a while I don't play it at all. But if I was going to make a list of, you know, the top games I've ever played that just, you know, transported me to a different place and made me feel excited to log into a game, well, this would be one of them. Elder Scrolls wound up being one of them. There's things about Elder Scrolls games that I don't necessarily care for in a, you know, particularly. I'm not going to say that all the Elder Scrolls games or Elder Scrolls Online are the best necessarily. They're best at some things. But what really locked in that sense of this is going to be one of my main games is that it really spoke to me on some level. It felt special. And after a while, Tamriel wasn't just a random video game world. It felt like kind of like a real place. It just was special. Not perfect, but special. In life, we meet people who are special. People who we fall in love with because they just feel perfect and amazing. And they're very rare. And if you find them, they're not going to be perfect people. They're not going to be, you know, top of the chart, the most beautiful or the smartest or any of the above. It's just that one person. You encounter them and you're like, wow, this is an incredible person. And you know this intuitively. Even if they aren't necessarily incredible in every way, they're incredible to you. It could be work that you love, a job you find, which just makes you feel like you're part of something greater than yourself. And does it mean that the job is the best job in the world? No. You know, like I've spent a lot of time working for Walmart in my life. And, you know, that's kind of a thing where that's a bittersweet kind of a thing, because I've spent so many years working for Walmart, working up in the company and doing different things. It's hard for me to anticipate the possibility of not working there. And sometimes you think, well, you know, why do I spend so much time on one particular company or one particular occupation? Like I could maybe do something else. And that's true. But then there's also that sense of, serving something greater than myself and feeling like in that company I found something that was a higher purpose. That doesn't mean it's all sunshine and rainbows and I never get frustrated and I never have times when I'm not impressed or anything like that. Like there's things I don't necessarily like, but by and large, there's something about it that just makes it feel different and more special than other things that I could be doing, and I think that's the part where life finds its meaning. When you grab something that caught your attention in a meaningful and special way, and then you get as much value as possible out of those things. Because, there's, to go back to gaming as an example, there's a lot of games that are really good. And there are also games that have inspired or intrigued a lot of people. But they're not necessarily speaking to me that way. So I think it's better to, in a world where it's so easy to go down the rabbit hole of, what game has the best graphics or which one is the, is the most, advanced in some particular technical way, to just have that attitude of, I'm not going to focus on what's technically best. I'm going to focus on what is the most special to me. And if you focus on things based on, the fruit that they bear in your life, the emotional dividend that they give you, well, don't worry about picking what's best. Just make the best out of the things that already inspire you in some way. You're never going to go wrong in life by doing things which inspire you. Like, that's just the bottom line. And there's always going to be somebody there to say, you should do something else, or here's my 2 cents on what the best path is. But it's sort of like Harry Potter picking his wand, like it wasn't like, that scene in the wand shop. He goes to get his wand, and the old guy in there tells him the wand chooses its master. It's not about, this one has the highest DPS or something like that. It's about saying, you kind of listen to that still small voice of intuition, the one that says, this is what's right for me. And then once you find it, don't let yourself go down the path of FOMO, of feeling like, because I put a bunch of hours in this game, I'm therefore missing out on all this other content that I might have experienced if I played something else. It's it's kind of like daily routines. I have these daily routines I try to follow. Every day I do some of these things, read a book or play a game or spend some time journaling or get my exercise or something like that. And what I've realized about this is it's all about investing in having a better experience personally in life. It's not about the things getting done. If my goal was to spend time playing a game, the goal is not for me to end my playtime being able to say, here's all the things that I got done in the game. It's not about getting things done. It's about having a good experience that's mentally stimulating or spiritually stimulating, right? So if my goal was to get a whole lot done in a game, well, why? That's the question. Why does it matter? If my goal was to finish Skyrim, well, 60 million people have already finished Skyrim, so why would I make that my life goal? It's not about finishing Skyrim. It's about having a meaningful experience that is refreshing and stimulating and makes me feel like I got value out of it. And that, when you put it in those terms, it doesn't matter whether you finished or you just, watched somebody else playing and got value out of it that way. Maybe you just watched, a Twitch streamer or something. I don't know. Doesn't matter really, though, what your progress bar says. It matters that you feel like the things you're doing in your life are adding value and inspiring you and helping you to be in a better place to uplift others. And if you're doing that, then it doesn't matter how many different things you dabble in. It's not about trying to say that you have somehow checked the box of participating in all of the available activities in life. What really matters is that you love the life that you have. In any case, as always, thanks so much for watching. Till next time. Good luck on your adventure.